Zuckerberg is a much better marketer than people give him, credit for. Because what he did, he could have said, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. I get it. I'll do something else. I'll figure it out. He said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build around all of the big names, and I'm going to go and attract the smaller universities. And by default, we're going to get the Harvards and the Yales, and that's what happened. So the smaller universities, I like to use this type of an analogy, would be sort of like the SOC analysts, the SIEM engineers, the cloud security architects, because at the end of the day, these people are going to be your actual product users. If they like you, they're going to be your sales champions, and the word's going to come up. Simple as that.
We are the Keyboard Samurai, podcast about the business of cyber and tech, here to help you or your business improve. Here's your host, Wil Klu. Let's hack into it now. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Another exciting episode. As always, like, subscribe, all that BS. Gotta take care of the YouTube stuff. Today, I'm joined by longtime LinkedIn buddy of mine, Jordan. Jordan, why don't you give everybody the 20 seconds of who you are and why we care?
I'll make it into 5 seconds. I'll save your audience. My name is Jordan Snapper, aka Dr. Cyber. I am a cybersecurity content creator. I do growth, GTM. I do also positioning for cyber founders, and it is a pleasure to be with you today, Will.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I love it because we're very like-minded. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun stuff to talk about. So let's just get into this under the cyber marketing thing. And I was thinking about it before you hopped on. I was like, what am I going to ask him? So your choice. What is either the biggest misconception or biggest screw up that we see from cybersecurity marketing?
I'm going to get a lot of people upset, especially CMOs, and I'll say it anyway, straight off the bat. For cyber startups, do not go down the path of Gartner. Do not start with all these G2 ads. Do me and do your audience and your CISOs and cyber buyers a big favor, because it means nothing to them and it's going to drain your budget instantly.
I wasn't even aware that they did. Like, I know I've advised, I've talked to a couple, and they have people who used to work for Gartner kind of advising them. But yeah, I never understood that. Look, spending the money on that, if you're not the enterprise player in the quadrant,
that's it. Yep. And that's later on. That's sort of like in the validation part. That's once you've established who you are. So a lot of companies, especially if you're a startup that just raised seed, that you've got about 10 or 7, or even if you're going into an A round where you're not super established yet, you're still product is a little bit immature. So you may be going up against the sea of all the big names. And the real question is, how are you going to differentiate? And that
I think is a great point, because you need to have that answer way before then anyway. Like, I think I was just today earlier talking to somebody else about startups, like, oh, I have my product's better than such and such, and I'm like, so what?
That's it.
If your DLP tool is better than Microsoft's, that's fine. But if the clients are all up in Azure and all up and down E5, you're not going to win. Like, there's a business decision. It's not a technical decision.
And if you're in that area of DLP, good luck going toe to toe against Sierra. So
it's
got a lot of work.
I always ask them, like, what's the business problem you solve, right? That's the first thing. Like, being able to translate that
into simple terms, and to make sure the most important thing is that your buyers understand the most important part is the messaging, positioning, and the USP. And this goes above analyst calls, which there's nothing wrong with any of this, by the way. But I wouldn't do this starting from day one. I mean, day one, you have to go and establish who you are, and that all comes down to positioning, figuring out the market, figuring out your ICP. And I hate to break the news to your audience, it's not always the CISO, by the way.
100%. And again, it's former conversations. Like, you may have, because in cyber, everything is usually very niche, right? You're not just like, oh, we're a cloud security company. No, you're a detection engineering technology.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah, you're not just cloud security. Wiz is there already. Orca's there. Aqua's there. Yeah. Good luck to you.
Right. But in that niche play, then you have to figure out, like, okay, sure, maybe the CISO is signing the check, but they're not They don't care about the detection engineer's job day to
Not
day.
at all. And they don't care about the fluff and the marketing buzzwords and all the other garbage that, you want to throw at them. All they care about is one thing, and you can certainly correct me if I'm wrong. Only one word matters to CISOs or cyber buyers: outcomes.
Yeah,
That's it.
100%. I would say the biggest thing I see from startups, and regardless of whether they're stealth or even late stage, when you're like, hey, send me some materials and it's all features and this is the
That's it.
blinky lights, this is what we do. I'm like, no, what's in
Yeah,
it
it's
for me,
cute.
man? Where's the
What's
benefit?
it? What's the benefit? How am I going to go present this to the CFO and the board and get them to sign off? Because at the end of the day, they're the real, stakeholders, or it could be the CIO. It's not always the CISO who's got that responsibility. They can be the ones, and always. So I'll give you a little example here to just show you how I like to think when I go and approach this for cyber buyers. I like to use something called a reverse Facebook engineering method. In other words, and Facebook came out, they certainly weren't the first, player in the game. I'm not even talking MySpace. ConnectU was there, and they had Harvard, they had Yale. So I like to think of the Harvard and Yales, right, as the CISOs, right? You want the
Mm,
big names, you want to eventually target them, but Zuckerberg is a much better marketer than people give him, credit for. Because what he did, he could have said, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. I get it. I'll do something else. I'll figure it out. He said, "What I'm going to do is I'm going to build around all of the big names, and I'm going to go and attract the smaller universities. And by default, we're going to get the Harvards and the Yales." And that's what happened. So the smaller universities, I like to use this type of an analogy, would be sort of like the SOC analysts, the SIEM engineers, the cloud security architects, because at the end of the day, these people are going to be your actual product users. If they like you, they're going to be your sales champions, and the word's going to come up. Simple as that.
yeah, it's all about I was gonna say it's the champions. You have to build that.
Yep,
You still have to be able to have message that resonates with the SOC
of
manager
course.
or the director or
That's
VP
it.
or whatever
Yep,
to make them care.
yep.
But you need to build those champions inside there. Oh,
That's it. And once you can build those, then the word's going to go through. And if that CISO isn't going to buy it, they'll hear about you, and they may put a very nice, warm, referral to someone else who might be in the market for what you have.
right. So let me ask a pretty what I think is a little hot topic, right? We're both
Yes.
active on LinkedIn, but like,
Yes.
what about the rest of the world? What about Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, like all of that?
It's interesting because Reddit to me has a ton of value. If you want to get the unbiased, unfiltered, and uncensored opinions of whether the products are good or bad, you're going to
Yeah,
find it there on Reddit.
100%.
you know Good, bad, indifferent. Obviously, I like to look, and I also, for me, writing content, I get a ton of ideas from there. And if you're writing content from Reddit, you'll see what's hot, what's trending, what people are talking about, and based on that, you have yourself an entire queue worth of content and topics and stuff to write about. You can put guides, you can do webinars. LinkedIn lives are very good. Matter of fact, if you're still on Reddit, go run a AMA. Go get the
Mhm.
go get the CEO involved or the CISO involved. That's
Yeah, those are great. I love doing AMAs. I just wish more people would show up to them. I'm
it.
not famous enough yet to have everybody
Yes,
want
you
to ask
are.
me
Yes,
questions.
you. Come on, you are.
It's all good.
You definitely got a lot to say.
Well, yeah, I think. Oh, well, that's the thing. Like, but who wants to? But who's listening is the biggest part.
Me.
I love you. No, well, it's also cool because like I saw a couple people post this now, like where all the AI is getting their answers from, right?
Oh,
And the majority of it is like Reddit is like number one. It's like
yes.
Reddit, LinkedIn, and I think
Quora's there also, by the way.
yeah. So
Yeah.
and you can't. And my guidance to everybody there is don't just go onto a Reddit and start advertising for yourself. Don't start to you will get blocked,
Oh, that'll
blacklisted,
be
stuff like
bad. That's like the number one cardinal rule of sin here. And
yeah.
yeah, if you want to get laughed at, lulled at, and get thrown out, do that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what I would do is I would add value, and of
Yeah.
course, answer, be there, and just provide those insights. It's the same thing when you're on LinkedIn, for instance. I go into comments, and I'm going to add a very long, detailed type of a thought reply. No, I want to actually start the conversation, invoke all the curiosity, because that's going to attract eyeballs. That's going to get people to say, he has something interesting to say. Maybe we should follow him. Maybe I want to ask him a question. and that's how you start the real conversations, and eventually you want to take it into the DMs, but then it doesn't sort of strike out as a cold pitch. It becomes more of like a warm, friendly, conversation.
Yeah, it's that continuing. Like I talk a lot about EEC, so educate, engage, and convert. That engagement is so important. That you have a couple back and forths in the comments. Okay, cool. Now you can take this DM and let's have a talk, and
Yep.
then you can start digging into what their business is, what's going on, and then that's the other part too. Is to, man, I know it's hard for SDRs and salespeople to not start pitching, but like if you
I
do
think
your
it's in their
job
blood.
right, if you do your job right, you never pitch. You just have
Nope.
conversations.
That's it. It's like you and I are speaking. Like you can get a CISO to speak. I mean, at the end of the day, we're still all people, right? We're still speaking about the same topics, security, different things. But here's something interesting. If we're still on the topic of LinkedIn, I'll tell you an area today that is very, very important for the founders, and something I also provide. And I'm pretty sure you're also there too, is to do LinkedIn founder-led growth for the CEOs and for the whole C team. Tremendous. I mean, I'll give you a very good type of an example of how people actually connect to people instead of brands. Virgin has 321,000 followers. Richard Branson has almost 19 million.
Yeah. I was good. And man, I was literally just talking about this like a few hours ago. If you're a founder, if you're starting up, like, or even not even a founder, like if you're an executive at a business, your
Yep.
ability to create inbound opportunities, you don't even have to do anything but post useful content, and people
Yep.
will engage with it and people will come to you. Like I know a ton of people who do all their business through just LinkedIn and probably get,
It.
70% of it inbound without even trying, right?
Yep.
So build up your
Yep.
personal brand or take advantage of
Yes.
something like somebody else's brand, right? Who can
That's it.
help you. Like that. I know when I
Yep.
advise people, that's, I'll make the connections for them if I can. It's still, and even for us, it's hard, right? Like
Of
for me to
course.
find somebody, it's easy to find CISOs, but they don't have time
Yeah.
to meet with you.
Not at
But
all.
the next time you like need to find a SOC engineer or
Yep.
or a firewall
Yeah.
person, those are harder to dig up.
Yeah, they are. But at the end of the day, those are the people that I believe are going to be your true ICPs.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, and I've had this conversation with many, cyber startup founders. I spoke to one the other day, literally, and they said, "Yeah, we're trying to target the C." So I said, "Okay, then so's everyone else." But then at the end of the day, I want to ask them. Let's say someone's in the world of cloud security, or if you're in SOC, why would I? Let's say I'm a CISO, obviously, of course, for you. Why would you want to go break an existing contract with Palo or one of the names that you're comfortable using, just to go
Mhm.
with this new, kid on the block? That's my first question. Why would they break the contract to come along? I'm not saying you're bad. None of that.
It's a business
Why would they want
opportunity.
to break the contract? That's it. That's my first question.
That's
That
a
makes
good
them
one.
think.
Yeah, I was gonna say I mean, it's similar, like what I said. Like I always ask if does Google, Amazon, or Microsoft do what you do already? Because if the answer is yes there, then you've got an uphill battle, right?
You
Then
do.
then it's a matter of, well, how fast can you do it before Microsoft can build it
Yeah.
also?
Or I'll tell you something else. Here's another way to sort of, reframe that. Will you have a better sort of AE, or will you have a dedicated team that's going to be guiding that buyer after they've made the purchase?
Hmm.
And that, QBR should be used more of like a benchmark to sort of show all of the results, because then you're teasing them to say, wait a second, you don't just want their business on a one-term basis. You want this to be a long-term ongoing relationship. And you do that by showing them results. And those are all the KPIs. And again, going back to the main word, outcomes, because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Whatever you're selling, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, that's to me, that's universal. I joked with somebody
Yeah.
the other day. I wish I had a product or a service to sell to consumers,
Yeah.
because you can, like, the marketing is so dumb. But when
It
you're
is.
selling to CTOs, CIOs, CISOs, CEO, executive lead, like
Yeah.
it can't be dumb.
It can't be, and really, it can't be fluff. And also, I'm not a very, very big fan of LinkedIn ads for this. I feel it's just money literally flushed down the toilet there. I'd rather invest that in the personal brand and in doing other things, which I like to call revenue generating content. And I'll
Mm,
give you a very good example of this. And something that I see coming here and there is actually doing unique security research and threat intelligence reports.
mhm.
Huge, very, very valuable. So obviously Wiz does a phenomenal job with this. And then there's a new player on the block, a company called Koi, that's also doing amazing things. KOI.
Nice.
And
Yeah, I
yeah,
had a few roles where we did those kind of technical breakdowns because again, depending on
yep,
what you're selling, like that's going to resonate more with your threat
of
hunters,
course.
your detection people, your SOC
That's it.
people versus like I can do CISO thought leadership all day, like that's fine, right?
Yep,
But that's
yep.
but that technical stuff, that's harder to piece together a lot of times. And so
It's
you do
harder. Yep. Yep.
go
And
ahead.
definitely, the value is there. Sorry, and the
No.
value is there.
Yeah, for sure. Cause that's I mean, man, anytime I try to make anything, I'm like, can somebody take this and do something with it after they read it? Right. That's a question I always ask myself.
That's it.
Right. Is this something
Yep.
people can execute on?
And I'll give you a very good example of a company who's doing everything right in terms of brand, and this is Cato. You look at
Mhm.
something they do called the CTRL report, and I know the entire security research team there. Well, you see what
Mhm.
they do; it's phenomenal. And from that, they basically have enough content to last a year plus.
Yeah. And it's super. And the nice thing about going deep like that is you can take the technical stuff you have and then just bubble it up. Be like, all right, I need to make this
Yeah,
director level, and for all right, now I need to make this, or like a lot of what I do. Let's make this, business owner.
yeah,
Like executives of the company, not just let's get out of security and like make other people pay attention to it as well. Get support
that's
from all
it.
angles.
And that's something which the entire sales team and the SDRs can benefit because it's unique. It's you selling your product in a way that literally resonates with your audience. Hopefully, right?
So you said SDR, so I have very strong opinions, and I think you do
Yeah, that's
too.
fine.
So let's
Yeah,
let's talk let's
yeah.
talk about well first off, I'm just gonna say this. There's no more MQLs are pointless. I don't need an email.
Completely. And plus, who actually defines them? To me, at the end of the day, it's sales who has to go define this.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want an SQL. I want a sales qualified lead. I
That's
don't
it.
want an MQL, right?
Yep.
And I think
Yep.
that you can invest money and time into your SDRs and they can
Yep.
have valuable conversations and not just be paid per click or pay phone call, right?
Absolutely. And that comes also, by the way, if we're talking leads and all that, then guess who always has to go take the blame? Marketing, because it's our responsibility. No, and I say this
Yeah.
because it's our responsibility to get them the leads and make sure that they're as qualified as possible. Not what we term as marketing qualified. What's actually comes along as a lead that sales can pick up the phone and go, I can have a conversation with this person
Yeah.
that
And
that
I
they've
think
been properly vetted.
and there's a big part gap I think that as you're especially in startups as you're sort of figuring out the marketing and sales side of things, like you have to have that content, you have to have the
Yes.
sales enablement because those
Yes.
SDRs or A's, whoever you've got,
Yep.
they need to have stuff ready to go when they get a response and be like, oh yeah, cool, you want to see our whatever, there it is. Oh, you want to talk about this service, cool, let me go get I mean they need to be able to engage.
Yes, yes, they do. And to me, a marketer's responsibility, and unfortunately, I can ask you this, Will. If you ever sat with marketing teams, ask them how many, or you can sit with sales. How many times has marketing sat with sales or actually listened in on a call? How many times?
Oh yeah,
Not often.
that's yeah, I think it's usually yeah, in my experience, I've always um brought the needs to marketing from the sales side or
Yep,
made or asked like as a marketing somebody in the marketing side gone to them and said hey I need to but it's a good idea. I never thought about like just having marketing listen in.
that's it. Because if marketing doesn't actually listen in, they don't understand the pain points that their sales teams are experiencing.
Yeah.
And if you can't answer that, then how can you go write content and assets and everything? You're just basically playing, guesswork over there. And unfortunately, most times you're not going to be getting the right answers.
Yeah, that's tough. I'll give away some free
Oh,
consulting to anybody listening. Take the go to your sales teams or go
yep,
back to your client conversations.
yep.
um, Find the 5 questions that get asked over and over and the
That's
5
it.
objections that they have over and over, and then answer all of that in your content. Like make
I
your
love
content
that.
about that.
That's it. That's it. There's actually a similar framework called the five whys. It's
Mm-hmm.
actually used. So there you are. You're familiar with it. Toyota used it. It's the five whys. until they get to the root cause of the problem. And if you
Yeah.
can get there, Toyota will actually halt production and everything until they found that little defective brake or component or something. Well, why don't you apply the same analogy with sales and marketing? Because once you solve that, guess what? Everything else becomes a lot clearer.
That's and on that booming point, that's outstanding. I love it. So Jordan, for everybody looking for you, obviously they can find you on LinkedIn. Anywhere else?
Yep, that's it. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm fairly active there. I run the occasional marketing event here, like a cyber marketing events. I did one actually in March called CISO Therapy Night, and
Nice.
a lot of fun. Yep, that was very good. I did another one called CISO Idol, which was also fun.
We should do a webinar sometime, maybe an AMA.
Yeah,
we should
I'd love to do that.
Stuff. Yeah,
yeah.
Cool, man.
Look, I mean, I take a lot of inspiration from the whole cyber marketing, community, the Danny Wolf and George Creed, and all these other, legends out there that are doing everything right, by the way. So if you're going to follow people, follow Wil, follow these people, because they definitely have the right answers, and they're not throwing buzzwords out there. And I'm fairly certain they're not fans of being the first page in a cool vendor and shelling out 100K for that honor, which I can assure you, CISO isn't really gonna.
That's outstanding, man. Well, thanks for your time, dude. This has been super cool. Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. Follow Wil and the podcast on LinkedIn /Wil Klu. Visit Wil Klu ME for information on services he offers to help your cyber or tech business grow. Until next time, Synaculator.